Presidential candidate positioning and repositioning, an examination of why presidential candidates take and shift positions, presented by the Citizen Genius Project. During a presidential campaign, candidates take positions on issues. Sometimes candidates shift positions, which is known as repositioning. Candidates can take and/or shift positions because they truly believe in them, but they can also do so for political reasons, namely that candidates try to make themselves appealing to voters and donors. This video will examine some of the typical circumstances that cause candidates to take positions and reposition themselves for political reasons. A quick overview of the U.S. political spectrum will be useful. In the simplest terms, the Democratic Party appeals to people with liberal or progressive views on the left side of the spectrum, and the Republican Party appeals to people with conservative or libertarian views on the right. The closer to the center of the spectrum, the more moderate the views. People with centrist views may or may not belong to either party. People with views that are more liberal or more conservative than the two major parties may also be independent, or they may belong to third parties, such as the Green Party or Libertarian Party. There are two phases of a presidential election: the primary process and the general election. Let's examine the primary phase first. People who vote in primary elections and caucuses tend to be strong party supporters. Additionally, the primary elections and caucuses in many states are closed, meaning only members of the party can participate. Voters with either centrist views or more extreme views who are not registered with either the Democrats or Republicans cannot vote in those primary elections and caucuses. This means the Democratic Party's primary voters are likely to have mainstream liberal views, while the Republican Party's primary voters are likely to have mainstream conservative views. Therefore, to win the primary and receive the party's nomination, candidates often take positions that align with their party's base of supporters. If candidates' previous positions align with their party's base, they will continue to espouse those positions. If candidates' previous positions do not match their party's base, they often reposition themselves to attract more support. To do so, candidates with moderate views move away from the center and further to the left or right as the case may be. Candidates with positions more extreme than their party's base move closer to the center. In other instances, candidates will maintain their moderate or extreme positions to appeal to the more moderate or extreme members of the party, and even encourage party voters to be more moderate or extreme. And/or a candidate may try to attract people who don't typically vote in elections. Once a presidential candidate captures his or her party's nomination, he or she moves on to the general election to run against the nominees from other political parties. To win the general election, a candidate will often use one of two strategies. First, a candidate may maintain the positions taken in the primary phase to keep the liberal or conservative voters excited and active. This will hopefully inspire massive voter turnout from the candidate's side of the political spectrum. Second, a candidate may reposition himself or herself to appeal to voters with centrist views who aren't supporters of either major party. In addition, a candidate may strive to attract crossover voters, meaning the Democratic candidate will try to win support from some moderate Republicans, and the Republican candidate will try to win support from some moderate Democrats. By moving to the middle, the candidate may become less appealing to the most liberal or conservative voters, but the candidate may figure those voters have no choice but to vote for him or her because no other candidate with similar views has a good chance of winning. There are numerous ways a candidate can reposition himself or herself. Here are some examples. A candidate may outright change his or her position on an issue, but doing so could appear disingenuous, and the candidate will risk being labeled a flip-flopper. Therefore, a candidate will more likely shift positions on an issue more subtly, so there is only a small change. Another method is for a candidate to not change his or her position on any issue, but rather to try to get voters to see him or her as being either more or less liberal or conservative as a whole. This could be accomplished by shifting which issues are focused on. For example, during the primary phase, a candidate may emphasize issues that appeal to the liberal or conservative base. But then during the general election, the candidate may focus more on issues that appeal to the centrist voters. A candidate may try to change the perception by announcing a new policy. For example, during the primary phase, a new policy on an issue that appeals to the liberal or conservative base could be announced. And during the general election, a new policy that appeals to the centrist voters could be announced. Another way a candidate can try to change the perception so as to appear more liberal, conservative, or moderate is by associating with people who are more liberal, conservative, or moderate. This has been a short overview of presidential candidate positioning and repositioning presented by the Citizen Genius Project.